Under a dim streetlight, a lone figure sits on a park bench, the world around them softened into a blur of night sounds. Their eyes, wide and restless, scan an invisible map of thoughts. Each heartbeat echoes with questions unanswered, each breath a silent debate. The mind is a spinning top, caught in a centrifugal dance that never lets go. It chases its own shadow in a labyrinth of mirrors, each reflection fracturing into 10 more, the edges sharp but elusive. This is the mind of the overthinker, a ceaseless, intricate loop where clarity slips further away the harder it's sought. They linger over possibilities like one lingers over fading echoes, caught between the need for certainty and the fear of what that certainty might reveal. It's a paradox wrapped in stillness, where the deepest strength of introspection morphs into a cage of hesitation. The air grows thick with tension, as if time itself folds into a loop, replaying moments with subtle variance but relentless rhythm. What if the endless loop inside the mind is less a prison and more a journey through undiscovered corridors of self? What stories live in these cycles of thought, and can they ever unravel to reveal a quiet center? The paradox of the endless loop is this: the mind's extraordinary capacity to reflect and reason, which we often praise as a sign of strength, can simultaneously become the source of our greatest vulnerability. Overthinking is not simply about thinking too much. It is a condition where thought itself becomes a cage. The very act of self-regulation, which we associate with control and clarity, sometimes spirals into cognitive dissonance, where conflicting beliefs or desires create persistent mental discomfort. Imagine holding two opposing thoughts in your mind, each demanding truth, each pulling your attention like rival magnets. This tension breeds a circular pattern of rumination, where the mind clings to distressing thoughts, spinning them around in search of resolution, but rarely finding it. Our psychological landscape is marked by this uneasy dance between insight and anxiety. Overthinkers inhabit a space where their intelligence and sensitivity amplify every detail into a labyrinth of possibilities. Philosophically, this loop touches on ideas from existentialism, the search for meaning in an indifferent universe. The echo chamber of thought is both a sanctuary and a trap, at once a place where the self can be explored and a battleground where it is fragmented. It's here that self-regulation is challenged, not by a lack of willpower, but by the overwhelming flood of internal contradictions. The loop becomes endless, not because the mind lacks tools, but because it wields them against itself, caught between the desire to understand and the paralysis of endless questioning. To understand the endless loop within the mind of overthinkers, we must first meet cognitive dissonance, the subtle psychological tension born when two contradictory beliefs coexist. Psychologist Leon Festinger introduced this concept, describing how the mind strives for harmony, yet often settles into discomfort rather than resolution. Overthinkers, in their relentless pursuit of truth or certainty, inadvertently invite this dissonance to dwell. Picture a person juggling the need to act decisively and the fear of making the wrong choice. This internal contradiction generates stress, pulling the mind inward like a whirlpool. Empirical studies remind us that cognitive dissonance often manifests as anxiety and irritability, emotions intimately familiar to those trapped in recursive thoughts. Alongside this, rumination, the tendency to repeatedly focus on distressing thoughts or problems, has a notorious reputation for deepening emotional pain. Unlike problem solving, rumination is not an active search for solutions, but a passive loop of dwelling, which prolongs suffering. Psychologists note that rumination fuels depression and anxiety, not because of the content of thoughts, but because of their inescapable repetition. Interestingly, this looped thinking can also be understood through the lens of self-regulation, the process by which individuals manage feelings, impulses, and behaviors. Here lies a paradox. Overthinkers engage in excessive mental self-regulation, attempting to control their emotional experience through persistent thinking. This excessive regulation ironically overwhelms their cognitive resources, leading to decision fatigue and emotional exhaustion. Yet, within this struggle lies a deep human longing, the desire for coherence and peace. The cinematic image of a slowly spinning mirror capturing infinite reflections of the self encapsulates this beautifully. Each fragment refracts a possibility, an interpretation, a fear or hope. The overthinker is not lost for lack of thought, but drowned in its abundance. And yet, there is a poignant hopefulness buried beneath this weight. Psychological insight suggests that awareness of these patterns can soften their grip. When one recognizes the loop not as a failure, but a feature of human cognition, the narrative shifts. The endless cycle is not a defect, but a complex dance between knowing and feeling, a dance that, with gentle compassion, can lead toward presence. As we explore these depths, we might begin to see the endless loop not just as an ailment, but as an opportunity to embrace the imperfect rhythms of the mind. To step into the heart of the endless loop is to confront the delicate interplay of fear and hope that lives within every overthinker. It's in the silences between thoughts, where the mind's turmoil becomes most palpable, where anxiety breathes quietly beneath the surface. And yet, in that very space also flickers a fragile light, a hope that insists on being seen. There is a solitude to overthinking, a loneliness carved from the echo of repeated questions and the absence of definitive answers. But solitude all invites us to listen, to the self, to the rhythm of breath, to the subtle shifts in posture that reveal an unspoken truth. For the overthinker, this listening is both a challenge and a gift. It demands a gentleness toward the mind that races, an acceptance of the discomfort that arises when certainty dissolves. Understanding that the endless loop is not purely an enemy, but part of the human experience, offers a quiet kind of relief. It allows a softening of internal critique, a gentle unhooking from the need to resolve every question immediately. Through this lens, overthinking becomes less a flaw and more a testament to one's deeply caring nature. A mind that seeks to find order in chaos, meaning in noise. The cinematic metaphor of reflections in a spinning mirror transforms here from a trap into a mosaic of possibilities, each shard glinting with insight and vulnerability. And perhaps, in this dance of reflection, there emerges a new relationship with time, one less about racing toward conclusions and more about inhabiting moments fully, imperfect though they may be. This transformation is subtle, often fragile. It does not erase the loops, but allows us to witness them without being swept away. To recognize the endless spiral and still choose the quiet presence beneath it. That is where compassion for the self truly begins. In the soft twilight of understanding, the paradox of the endless loop gently unfolds. It was never a prison to escape, but a terrain to navigate. Rich with shadows and light, the restless mind, once caught in ceaseless repetition, begins to find rhythm, not through control, but through acceptance. It wasn't about perfection, it was about presence. The spinning mirror no longer reflects fracturing, but the fluid dance of a self willing to embrace its complexity without fear. The narrative shifts from one of battle to one of belonging, to the self, to the moment, to the ebb and flow of thought itself. And in this belonging lies subtle empowerment, not the kind of power that silences questioning, but the power to befriend it, to hold the mind's endless loops with tenderness rather than resistance. The endless loop becomes a song, a meditation, a slow unfolding where insight and feeling meet in quiet balance. This is not defeat, but a deeper victory, an invitation into the imperfect, beautiful landscape of the human mind. And as the final light dims, there remains a truth that lingers like the last note of a melody. The mind may chase itself endlessly, but in the chasing, it discovers the contours of its own presence. It wasn't about escaping the loop, it was about learning to dance within it.